Welcome to day 8 of 30 Days of Sketches, 31 days actually, series 13 by Christy's Beautiful Life. I'm Amanda from Crafting with Amanda, and our sketch today is by Gloria Montrose. And it's funny, I don't have a lot of single photos or just one or two photos from this collection of older Walt Disney World photos that I am trying to scrapbook this month, but I do have this one from the Sci-Fi Cafe. So I'm showing you here that I'm going to use my scan and cut to cut out all of these images. So I go ahead and put them in my MISTI and make sure that there's a good space around each of the stamps. And that comes important when you go ahead to scan it into the scan and cut for how the machine uses or cuts or allows the scanned images to cut. So here I am using this suction cup to hold the lid of my ink pad because it just makes it easier for me to do that. And I don't know if you noticed, but when you put the suction cup on and you just have one ink pad, it picks up the whole pad. But once you get 3 or 4 ink pads in a stack, it takes just the lid off because the magnets from that other kind of keep it in place. So I'm just using a charcoal gray. You can use black if you want, but I'm just using a charcoal gray, but I want to make sure that I have every area stamped. This little gear here is kind of giving me grief. So I'm going to go ahead and ink up everything again, but it's coming out really nice. And that's what I like about the MISTI, is that it allows you to re-ink and stamp again multiple times, and it's going to line up every time. So now we have all of that gear stamped out, and for the click and cut, no, that's the wrong tool too. For the scan and cut, that's the right one. I like it because it'll cut right next to the edge of your image that you scan, or you can change how big of a border you give it. Today I'm going to give it a 0.04 border, but to ensure that it's not going to cut all of these components, like cut the head off one of my robots, I'm going through it with my pencil and I'm just making sure that all of the outline of each of these images has a line connecting it. So you can see here where the wheels on the robot dog I've connected to the body. All of these images I end up putting into the stamp set, and I can use them as masks later on because the pencil mark won't hurt using the masks. But all of these joint here where the arms connect to the body and the feet are all separated, you just have to connect those pieces. And then I put it through the scanner and I realized that this guy with his crossed legs, I forgot to go ahead and outline him. So here I am doing that right on the mat. And I just, like you saw, go around and make sure that that comes out clean. So after I had done my stamping, I left all of my images where they had originally stamped, and here you can see why. So now this is going to be a placement, so I know exactly where to place the cutout blank images that the scan and cut gives me, and I can stamp them perfectly every time, and they're going to be in the center. So while you're watching me stamp here, I'll go ahead and remind you to subscribe to the channel and give a thumbs up. A happy comment also helps me out. If you have any questions, let me know. I do plan to do some more detailed scan and cut tutorials coming up. I do have some scan and cut kind of where I walk you through the steps of doing direct cut imaging, and I can put a link for that video here and then also in the description of the video. And what I'm doing is I decided that the dog and the gears and the outlined robot I was just going to do in black, and then I'm picking some of these other images that I'm going to do in red. And because I have a sticky grip mat in my MISTI, the stamps really do like to stick to that and it's harder to open. I didn't want to risk moving my template, so I'm just putting in some scrap papers to make sure that those stamps that are still on the paper don't end up causing me to have problems. So as you can see, the more images that I'm getting done, the easier this is, the faster it goes because I have less to mask off. But I'm using Bluebell and my candy apple, which is my thread throughout this whole month, and I'm just kind of stamping all those images and they'll be ready to go. So I'm looking at the colors in the photo, and it's hard to see, but behind the red car that we're in is a green car. So I thought I would take red and or green and blue and do just some background. She has a whole bunch of layers and then some, I don't know if they're just kind of smears behind the photo area. So I thought I would do that here with just ink and water. This piece of paper is gessoed. So I have done this previously where it's just a thin coat of gesso. It kind of makes a coating so that the water doesn't soak into the paper too quickly and it allows the inks to flow. A lot of times I'll use the re-inkers to get more vibrant colors, but here the ink pads, I knew I wasn't going to do just a huge area. So I'm using a toothbrush today. I've used water brushes in the past. I've used sponges in the past. You just have to use what tools you have. So while this dries, I'm going to go ahead and look at some papers that I want to do. Gloria on her sketch has all of these wonderful torn layers, and so I'm trying to pick what layers I want to use, what color scheme I'm going to come up with. I've really found doing my album this month that I'm kind of going outside of my normal comfort zone. I think I like solid colors, tone on tone. It's kind of what's in my wardrobe too. So it's interesting to go outside and do some bold patterns and bring that element in to my creating. And it's funny, at first I'm like, oh, this is too much, but when it's all said and done, I like it. So for me, for ripping edges, as you can see, I like to tear the first edge and then glue the next piece of paper on it and then tear the next edge. And all of that just works for me because it allows me to know exactly where I am placing that next image. I repeat that for however many layers I want to do in this project. So she has the journaling under the photo, but her photo is also longer. So to kind of keep that orientation, which I don't always do, but I thought it would be kind of neat, I'm going to go ahead and do the journaling with my old journaling jots stamp on black and just put it right next to the photo. So here I'm going to do my layering for the bottom. So I ripped that first edge of the black, and then by gluing the green underneath, I know exactly where I want to rip things. The blue that's in the side panel piece is actually a zip strip, and I don't have another one of those, so I'm just using kind of the main primary color that's on there, and I don't see that it's missing, so using the zip strip and then the cardstock work just fine for me. And I just want to get an idea of how wide the first strip is, just so that they're balanced when you put one to the left and one on the bottom of the page. So again, I just used one strip to kind of help determine the size of the other. And here we go with that black cardstock, my white daisy. This is a pigment ink, and pigment ink stays on top of the paper and it takes a little longer to dry, so you do need to be careful to keep it out of harm's way for smearing. So I've done all that, and then I have this napkin that I've saved for 25 years. From our trip, and I'm going to use that as our title. And I'm not sure how the paper is going to tear, so I did a little tear section on the other side so that I would have an idea of how fibrous it is. I don't know if you've done mulberry paper or not, or have ripped papers, but it feels like every paper rips a little differently. It has different fibers that are holding it, and one way will rip very differently than the other way. Like on a newspaper, if we used to clip coupons, and if I didn't have scissors, like I could get the two sides of the coupon, they would rip straight, but the other two, forget it. You had to be really careful on those and fold them. So there is my title, my journaling pieces in there. And now I'm just going to go ahead and take all of these little stamped images. And the reason why I chose the TV screen as well as all of these robots is, if you haven't been to the Sci-Fi Cafe, what it is it's like a mini drive-in theater. So you're seated and eating in these cars, and then on a big movie screen, they run these bee-themed movies from like the 60s and the 70s. And when I say bee-themed, they're low budget, poor acting, definitely hit the cheese factor in the acting, the story. I don't even think you get to pay attention to the story, but they're so funny and cute little clips. So the robots in this just work. So as you can see, I did not like my white distressed background, so I moved to black. I have not done as much scrapbooking with dark bases or even black bases as I've done these first week plus for the 30 days of sketches. It's kind of funny, but I just think that Disney lends itself to that, or at least my photos do, because once I put that black background in, I almost feel like you can see the photo better. It kind of brought that clearer and it made it easier to see the people in it. So now I'm just going to take my robots and scatter them through the page. I decided that the other robot that I colored, it was not the right tone. It didn't have kind of the pure tones that the red and blue and the other did. So I'm going to leave that. I'm going to put it in the stamp set for another day. But I still want some of that background noise, I'll say. So I'm just using this little cluster of stars from the One of Those Days stamp set. There's these critters on them that are all kind of disheveled, and one of the images are these stars, kind of like that they had a fall, and you know, in a cartoon you see those stars above their heads or whatnot. So again, I'm just using that with my white daisy ink, creating the background noise, and we're done. That's all it takes. In the description below the video will be a playlist for everybody playing along with the 30 days of sketches, and a playlist for just my videos in case you want to watch the series. Blessings.